Hey everyone, today I am joined by Cody, Job for Cody is also how he's known, from Keeping It Geekly, uh, a interview podcast. What would you call it? Type of show, Cody. Where
So typically for keeping it geekly, say it's the latest and the greatest from comic books to video games and everything in between. Anything kind of from the geek culture realm.
okay, so I know most of it focuses around like comic books and like indie stuff and all that. I've seen you've been getting all sorts of artists on and stuff. How has that been for you?
So I mean, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be able to kind of scratch the heads of a lot of these creative talents. It's been a really awesome experience. I really love comics. I've had some indie game developers on too, so we're trying to slowly but surely get into that realm. The biggest thing is like finding these with these creators, it's like almost they have their own like sphere, if that makes sense. Like with Twitch streaming, you have like a whole Twitch streaming community on Twitter. Like the same thing is with like comics and indie games, and it takes a little work, but once you kind of get your foot in the door, I mean, people come to you wanting to be on the show, so it's nice.
Yeah, it must be really nice to just build that type of relationship with the indie comic environment with people, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. Uh, what made you decide to go down this path to start doing this? Was it just your interest in these subjects, or was there anything else?
So it was this like started roughly about a year ago, maybe like a year and like 2 months. I was doing a lot of Twitch streaming content creation and was wanting to get into interviewing. And it was one of those things where I reached out and like stated earlier, it was really hard for me to kind of break into the indie comic scene. To kind of give you an example, like I know me and Chris have been working really hard on like trying to get this going. And it's been like what 2 months since I've had like a free break because like I've been so fully booked. But to give you an example, when I first started doing this, I did one interview in November and didn't do another one until February. So it was like one of those things where I went months like trying hard and fishing. Cause I really like the first one I did, I had a lot of fun and I wanted to kind of branch into this type of content, but under a different realm. That's kind of how Keeping It Geekly was born. I had my own little side project I was doing then, just like doing reading comics, covering like geek culture news, and that was kind of like a side project on job for Cody. But as soon as I started interviewing people and it started getting serious, I wanted to give that a lot of respect. It was important for me to not have that feel like it was a side project. So that's what motivated me to really take the brand and split off to its own like thing and really try to hit the ground running with these interviews.
It must be crazy, like when you started it though, only having a couple interviews a month. That didn't like scare you at all, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, like, if I'm being honest, I get a little anxiety, with every interview. I'm up to, I think, interview 243, 44. And that was just like from February to November. I pumped out that many. And I get nervous with almost every single one a little bit. It's a lot of just like insecurities, right? Like a lot of self-doubt, if I'm going to do this interview justice, if I'm going to stumble across my words. I grew up with a speech impediment. I was verbally delayed. So it can be a struggle. There's a lot of things behind the scenes. Like, if a particular creator has a really hard to pronounce name, I'll spend 10 minutes on Google pronunciation, listening to it and repeating it. Like, just to make sure I can get that correct. And um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still get nervous to this day, but it's kind of how you work through it. I think that really gets it going, right? Like feeding off of that nervousness and utilizing it to kind of just like push yourself through it.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, whenever I'm getting ready to go out to the comic store on Wednesday, which is today, so technically I gotta go later, I usually end up watching a lot of like your indie comic interviews just to figure out, is this something that's worth getting? Because lately I've been like struggling getting a whole bunch of like Marvel and DC stuff. Uh, I think last thing I picked up was just some Superman Son of Kal-El, actually. But there's so many great things that are just indie comics nowadays, and I've been enjoying figuring out about more and more about them through your show.
Yeah, that means a lot, man. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, man, honestly, with indie comics, for me, you're always going to have comics that, aren't going to be your taste. But then once you get a comic that really is, it just hits so much harder because these creators have to work twice as hard. They don't have, the DC image or the Marvel image behind them. They have to earn that image themselves through means of their work. So like when you get a really good comic, like it hits so much differently, I feel. Well, yeah, so that was Talk Geekly. So
Uh,
basically, that was a podcast where we essentially just did comic books and we covered geek culture news. My co-host covered Marvel, I covered DC, and we unfortunately didn't work out. And I that's kind of where the idea for Keeping It Geekly was born. So after that like dissolved, I moved on to just doing DC books and geek culture news, and it was like that for probably about a year. And then that's when I kind of first started doing my indie comic interviews. Was like November, and then we had the couple months where I had nothing at all, and then I interviewed this creator called Nina Amberlin, and she retweeted. And this is how powerful Twitter can be. She retweeted one tweet, and like I said, I went months just fishing and no hits. And she retweeted one tweet and it went like there was like 100 responses to it. I remember taking 3 days off from Twitch streaming to respond to each individual comment, trying to book as many shows as possible. Cause it was at that moment, I had that moment of like realization where it's like, hey, if I want to do this seriously, I need to do it. I need to like put my feet down and show these people I'm serious about this because it's like you only get a few moments like that, and once you really take full advantage of what the opportunities presented, it really makes a difference. Like I ended up that was like what February. I ended up booking what 3 or 4 shows. I went from like doing a interview like 2 interviews in like 3 months to like doing 3 to 4 interviews a week. And then it just quickly grew and blew out of control. And I was doing them almost like every day, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, dude. It was like almost, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like addicting almost, in a sense, like with interviewing people, getting them on the show, learning about like how they created comics. Cause I want to write a comic one day. That's kind of like when I started interviewing, it really got me back into my creative flow and kind of my creative aspects of things. So like these interviews are nice because not only do I get to like kind of really scratch the surface of the indie community and for individuals like yourself, they get to find some cool books, but like I get to learn about how these people are creating books too. So it's like a win-win, it's cool for me to like do this, but it's also cool for me to learn how to do this.
like what you said, I've seen so many like videos and all that sort of stuff that you only get like a few opportunities for the thing you want to do, especially if it's any form of content creation. So, seeing you say, I took off 3 days to do this and get all these interviews set up, honestly, that's probably the best decision you could have ever made in that situation type thing. But I still find it crazy that you managed to do like 2 through 3 a day type deal.
Well, I wasn't doing that every day. That was like once or twice a week. Like on a Wednesday, like today, is my free day. So like you're interviewing me. I'm interviewing someone at 4, and then later on tonight, I'll be moderating a town hall meeting with Global Comics, which is like a pretty big, platform for indie creators. We'll probably have a turnout of 40, 50 people there. Like, it's all about time management.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like slotting it out. We were talking about it earlier. It was like almost impossible for us to line up our schedules. But like the thing is, like when you find that window, you just have to go for it.
Yeah. I I literally just got done work at 7 a.m. PST today. And I was like, I got called into work again. I know Cody is free today. I am going to stay up, and this will be the day, so I can finally just be at peace in my mind, knowing that I actually got it done. Type thing. It was so chaotic the past couple months trying to get this figured out, but God, it's so nice to have it figured out. You know what I mean?
So my biggest thing was like when I first started doing this and such, like balancing content creation and such was like impossible. And that time when said you have to really, you only get a few opportunities, like I speak from the heart with that. Like I was essentially a Twitch content creator first, and I had a pretty big rise. And we're talking like I had 50 to 100 people watching me at a time. I was like on the way to being partner. I applied for being partnered, and I kind of just like let it all slip away. I wasn't like ready for that level of commitment, I guess. So well, like when I say you only get a few chances, you want to make sure you're ready for those chances too. And if you're not ready, just still take it. I had done interviews before for indie games, written ones. So like jumping into this realm wasn't too bad, but doing it live and doing it like on camera is like a whole different realm than doing a written interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like when I was a kid, I had a whole bunch of like health problems. Still do, but I would run this haunted house type thing back then. And my experience from just getting interviewed all the time about that, I'm just trying to translate over to this type thing where I'm like, okay, I know what it feels like to be the interviewee. Now I just gotta figure out the other half type deal.
Man, honestly, the biggest thing, if I could give anyone trying to do this a piece of advice, I heard it on it was a TED talk, surprisingly enough. When I first started really getting into podcasting and wanting to do this, I dedicated at least 15 minutes a day to listening to something that would help me better what I'm doing. And 9 times out of 10, the videos just regurgitate the same thing over and over in different ways. It was annoying. But there was one thing in particular that was said in a TED talk where the dude essentially said that when you're interviewing someone, that essentially you just shut up. You let your guest do 75 to 80% of the talking, and then you do the rest. And you do your best not to overstep. And if you overstep, you immediately back it up and like, hey, go ahead, finish. And that's kind of been my golden rule with doing interviews. In the beginning, I was a little bit more brash. I kind of did step on toes, and I would try to interject so I didn't forget. My biggest thing was forgetting. And I learned throughout the months and throughout the interviews, you don't want to like for instance, our interview, you don't want to like be listening to me talk with a question already in your head. You just want to listen to me talk and then have your question pop from that. Or then either you script your questions or you do it organically. That's kind of like I do it. I'll have a structure, but I usually just shoot from the hip and just try to make it flow.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, at first, I tried to script most of my questions, but I realized that's just not like organic type of sense. And also, I figured out the whole don't do all the talking type thing because I was editing my first one where I was talking to one of my friends that's a Minecraft programmer. And I was like, man, there's too many times I interject here. I fucked up.
And that happens. I mean, the only way you're going to get better is by doing more. And I mean, honestly, the only reason I have gotten to where I am with my interviewing is because I've done so much. I've done, 243, 244. Like that is, and these interviews are typically 30 to 45 minutes long, every single time. So like, it's just experience. And, there's times where you're sick. Dude, there was interviews where I was getting up, hitting the Flonase, chugging down NyQuil, and like, slapping myself awake. And I'm like, let's do it. Immediately after the interview, passing out. But sticking to it and working through it. But that's me. I would say if you don't feel confident, because essentially you don't want the show to sink. So if you don't feel confident you're going to be able to give your A game, don't do it. But I don't like missing interviews. So For me, as long as I feel confident enough that I'm gonna have a good show, I'm gonna stick through it. Like, because in my head, if you're doing a podcast, it's only as good as you like let it be, right? Like, you could have a bad guest. I've had plenty of guests who were socially awkward. Uh, they had trouble, expressing their thoughts. I've had two guests who barely spoke English. I had one guest who had to, we had a translator. And the biggest thing is how you handle it as the interviewer, and like how you keep the show floating and how you keep like the cadence of the conversation going. Because ultimately, even if you have someone who is maybe struggling a little bit, or maybe they're not as energetic as you'd like, you can be energetic, and then people are going to listen to your shows and they're going to be like, hey, I know you're about this, because I heard the one show when you were with this one guest and they sounded like they didn't want to be there, but you were so excited to be there. And like, that's what people listen to. That's what people love to see. And it's easiest to get a good conversation coming when you're energetic and excited.
I I know exactly what you're saying. It's so much fun to do these types of things. And also, I've seen some of your tweets where you're like, "Oh God, I gotta go through this and edit out all the sniffles and coughs that I just have in the background because I was sick this day." And I honestly just super respect that about all the stuff you do. So, one thing I was wondering though, before keeping it geekly, before I don't know if this was before job for Cody actually, uh, but you used to be a game reviewer. Would that somehow have led to this eventually?
So I essentially first started doing game reviews for Gross Magazine. This was probably, it was like right when my daughter was born, so like 2012. And it was just an online digital magazine only. And I essentially would just play a game, beat it, write a review on it, and then I would also cover like tech. So anything like technology, anything up and coming. And what was crazy is I would write these crazy like things. Like, I remember I wrote a speculation article about the robotic dogs, like those war dogs, and then they ended up actually being a thing. And I forgot where I seen it, but anyways, like that's kind of where I kind of broke my teeth on like doing this type of thing. And then it led to Gamers Pantheon, which I ended up butting heads with the owner. And then I made my own called Super Game Reviews. And dude, I love that site so much. And we that's kind of essentially where the job for a Cody came from. Like, I was doing these reviews, beating these games, and often I would try to write down my experience, but I was having a hard time memorizing everything. So doing like Twitch, I could essentially watch, I could record myself play, stream it, talk about it, and then be able to watch the footage again. And it was one of those things where it was just like a means to an end, I guess. Like, it was just the easiest way for me to get footage, because I didn't know about OBS. I was so wet behind the ears. I was streaming off of my PS4. I had no idea what I was doing. And my mom, out of everybody, would watch me stream and play video games. And she lived in Michigan at the time. I lived in Ohio, so that was kind of how we like had like nightly communication. And that's honestly like what started it all. Like, I started streaming like, more and more, and then I would get new people in, and I would be so used to talking while I was playing, talking with my mom and such, that it was like just natural, like just like while I was gaming, because sometimes people can't do that. Like when they first start streaming, they have a hard time balancing playing the game and reading chat. And I kind of had I had that experience, like just like doing it with my mom. So like when I started actually like streaming and people started coming in, I was able to kind of keep up with the flow. And man, I remember in the beginning it was so I would try so hard to like stand out. I would like try to wear goofy hats or a goofy shirt, so like when people would come in, they would like notice it, and like it would be a conversation starter. And like, dude, thinking back, it was like it was cringe, but like respectable cringe. Like, I was like, man, I was putting in that work to get this channel to grow. And It eventually did, and like I just, one thing led to another, and I think with Twitch streaming and podcasting, it's almost like it's not the same, but it's essentially pretty similar, especially if you have a friend, because that's what a podcast really is, right? It's just like an audio of two people chatting, and like so, like when you're with your friend, that's like the best conversation. That's the person you're most comfortable with. Um, so yeah, I would just say like that, Twitch streaming, just playing with a lot of friends. I had my one buddy, Pendragon, I am Pendragon. We would, I was, what was I playing? Neo? And I remember we would get into, we would talk about Naruto and comics all the time. And I'm like, dude, we should like make a show. Like, and I remember DJ Zuko in my Discord helped me come up with the name Talk Geekly, and that's kind of how that podcast was born. And then one thing led to another; it broke apart, and then you know, it was I could talk about it now. We kind of just had bad blood. It was one of those things where we had too similar of a personality. We butted heads. And yeah, I was on my end. I was a dick. I was going through some stuff. I was sobering up from drinking, so there was a lot. I was a pretty big drinker for a lot of my Twitch streaming actually, and it was funny enough. As soon as I sobered up, like I lost a chunk of people because like when I was just drinking, I was like a crazy fool, and that kind of bled into Talk Geekly. Penn was a drinker, I was a drinker, and we would just butt heads. And when I sobered up, um, I was just volatile. I'd get angry very easily, and we just broke apart. But I still remember the day like it was yesterday. I woke up and I was removed pretty much from all the social media platforms as like the editor or admin and just a regular person now. I'm like, oh, that's how this cookie crumbles. And we always had a catchphrase at the end of Talk Geekly. And I would always be like, why don't you sign us off? And he'd always be like, keep it geekly. So I, out of spite, that's how I created Keep It Geekly. Was I took his catchphrase and I pretty much used it to create a show. And yeah, it was just I don't know. I make sure to tell everybody that part of the story too, because I have no shame in it whatsoever. Because it was like my own little get back, right? Like you took my baby from me, so I'm gonna take yours from you.
That is just hilarious, that final part there, but it sort of sucks to hear that, but also I've seen the post and all that stuff and heard you talk about it sometimes, but I've never actually said it to you, but congratulations on the whole sober thing.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, sobriety was a big thing for me. I was not a person I liked to be when I was drinking, and that we're 2 years past it, and it's one of those things where I don't have any desire to go back to it. I have desire to drink, and that's how I know I shouldn't go back to it. So for me, it was just realizing that was a cycle that needed to be broken. So my kids didn't see me drinking all the time, and then my kids didn't end up drinking themselves, right? Like, because a big part of that is making sure what I'm doing, my kids are able to model after.
It's always about the next generation type thing. I have a question slash opinion for you around streaming. So I used to do it like all the time type thing, right? With Loth and all that. But I don't know what, and maybe you can help me figure this out. But recently, I've just been enjoying recording like content and thinking it more out type thing, and I only find the want to stream when it comes to like a big project or a big event that I would think would be cool for like a stream environment. Have you ever thought this way? Do you know maybe why I'm starting to think this way? Words?
I mean, it would be almost impossible for me to like, I guess, understand like why, without having a much deeper and larger like understanding of like, everything that's led up to that point. But for me, like with Twitch streaming, dude, I loved it so much, and then I went down like a spiral with drinking and shit. That's like kind of like what led to me eventually sobering up. But um I took a break, and like, man, it was wild. I took a break and I was averaging what 30, 40 people, 50 people, sometimes 100, and like came back, and man, it like my audience was like demolished by like 75%. And a lot of people say discoverability is like shit. I don't know what it is. I know at the time I wasn't marketing myself good, you know, because I think a big thing with this, a big thing with content creation is being real with yourself. Like at the end of the day, you are your content. So if your content's not thriving, there's something that you have to be doing wrong. Like, you know, that's, you know, as you know, there's a lot that goes into it, but if you simplify it, so for like me, it's like, dude, like, I don't know. I'm not playing like the popular games. I'm playing games that I want to play. And, you know, I had that moment of realization where it's like, do I care? Like, do I want to have games where I'm playing it just for viewership, but not enjoying my time? Or do I want to be able to pop open Pokemon at like 2 in the morning because I can't sleep and have a 2 hour stream and have a blast because I know my friends are going to pop in there and we're just going to be goofy together? Or, you know, like God of War Ragnarok, just randomly popping that open last night and having a blast with friends. Like for me, like the second I stop caring about my viewer, because it gets content creation is so much fun, but it's a double edged sword. Like when you start thinking about your viewership, that's when it stops being fun. And like Twitch just became a burden. And as soon as I stopped giving a shit about my viewership, like I ended up loving it again. Like I met the love of my life from Twitch. My mod, Oblivia, she moved all the way from California to Ohio. You know, after, you know, and that was due directly to Twitch. But like, yeah, there was a point where I hated Twitch, and like, I don't know. The reason I do it now is because I love to play video games and cut the, you know, cut the shit with my friends.
But what's Ohio?
Cornfield, man.
Oh, okay. I didn't. I thought there was only cornfield there, but how do you live there?
I mean, I guess to answer your question though, like find what you love, like, you know, and do what you love. Like, and if that's not on Twitch, then that's not on Twitch. If you like making content pre-recorded, do that. You could still stream that. You could still upload that video, put it on OBS, you know, as a media source, and play that video and stream that video. That's, you could still do that. Best of both worlds. I mean, a lot of this content creation is finding the way to take shortcuts. Like for me, I stream on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook at the same time. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't want to get affiliated with Keeping It Geekly?" Like, no. Like it's cool with Joffrey, Cody, because I have an established following, and like I have people who are subscribed. But like starting out, like Keeping It Geekly, yeah, Geekly, like has blown up the way it did because I was able to hit all those platforms at once. And like people are mind blown when you're like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna be putting you on all these platforms. Like I have goals to get back into TikTok with my comics. Basically, I do. I would, man. I'm gonna give you my secret, and but it's a good secret. So, like for me, like finding ways to recycle content and put it on platforms is a win-win. You know, because you want to stay posting at least 1 to 2 times a day on every social media platform you have, and it's impossible to do. But once you figure it out, that's gonna help you blow up. So, like, I would do Keeping It Geekly podcast where I would cover 3 geek culture newses and then 3 DC comics. I would take the 3 DC comics, I would put comic book pages flipping like an animation, and then upload that to TikTok. And it would blow up more than my podcast would. It would make me so mad. But that goes to show you that doing that is worth it. Like, dude, these videos would get 1,000 to 5,000 views on TikTok. You can look right now and you would see them. Like Keeping It Geekly on TikTok right now. I haven't done it in 6 months because I've been so busy with doing interviews, but dude, recycling that content, like it's insane. And eventually, once I get 1,000 followers on TikTok, I'm going to do my interviews, and then I'm going to restream that interview and put it on Instagram and TikTok, because the base canvas resolution, like you have to adjust it so you can't do all of them at once. And it's like once you get to this level of slicing and dicing, man, um, it's a chore. But once you get used to it, it's like an assembly line, you know? Like I do my podcast, I make the animations for the podcast, I upload the podcast, then I take those animations and then I have 3 of them. So that's 3 days worth of content on TikTok. Like you start really thinking about what you could stretch and how far, you know?
What I started doing while I was uploading frequently, which I sort of haven't done for a month because I got so busy with work type thing and just am getting the free time to do it again, is I would, going back to the analytics thing you said with like viewership and stuff, I have a bad habit of just after uploading a YouTube video for like the first day or two, I just have to keep on checking, and I would realize, wait, there's this most replayed moment in the video. Maybe I can cut that out, reformat it so it looks good in the TikTok style, and upload it there. So I get what you're saying with the re-uploading content onto different platforms type thing. I like the idea. It's pretty interesting.
I'm trying to get back on track with everything. Like it literally took me. I was so booked. It took me about a month and a half. I remember in October, I was like, I'm going to. I made the announcement in October that I was going to officially stop doing interviews every day, and that I was only going to do interviews Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I, for one, was afraid that it was going to like ruin me. It ended up like it was so weird. It ended up working out in my favor. Like, so there's times where I'll get people who book just the book, but then they don't either show up or they don't like they don't really care to like come to the interview or really give it all they got. You know what I mean? Now the way I have it set up, like I'm only getting people who really want to come on the show and they're really excited to talk about their book, and it's like perfect. You know what I mean? I don't know how really to explain it like much better. Like I'm getting like I feel like the cream of the crop is like right now, because like the only way for people to get booked on the show right now is they have to DM me. So in my mind, and I mean it's like starting to show. So I mean it must be working. In my mind, you're only gonna reach out the DM if you feel one confident about what you got, and two like you're excited, you want to be on the show. So like I don't know, man. I was afraid that doing that, restructuring my scheduling like that was going to ruin me, but it ended up giving me really good interviews. I ended up like cutting down a lot of time and trying to implement more Twitch streaming into it. Finding time to edit Twitch videos though for YouTube, I don't know how people do it, man. I just don't like I don't. Maybe I'm getting too old. I'm just getting too tired of it. You know, like it'll be like 1 or 2 in the morning. I'm like, man, I can't stay up any longer.
That's why my secret there. I'll share this one with you. Is I'll prepare a script type thing, and I'll be like, okay, I have to find this specific part where I'm doing this type of thing that matches up with what I'm talking about in the script. Everything else, God, get it out of here.
Yeah, I don't even do that. I for right now, I am content with doing like not like a it's almost like a let's play. But it's just basically like chapter by chapter. So I don't know. The Last of Us Part 1 that got remastered for the PS5. I pretty much beat that, and each chapter is its own video. And I just pretty much anytime I die, I cut that out. So it's like one seamless playthrough. So I guess it is kind of like a let's play, but it's not like one of those YouTube like overdone let's plays. It's just like straight cut from my Twitch content. And it feels lazy, but I don't my thing is being consistent with the brand. So I would rather have those videos but have them all be consistently done instead of have one be really really good and then have all the rest be crap, you know?
But if there was a certain guest that you would want on your show, who would it be? What's your dream guest? I guess I'm trying to say.
Oh man, trying to think. You know, probably any creator from like any, Dark Souls game, like anyone who's worked on them or Bloodborne, any Soulsborne game would be really cool. Um, Tom Taylor, Tom King would be awesome. I know Steve Orlando, we've interacted a couple times on Twitter. Steve, if you're listening, think about it. But I've had some big names. I had the artist and the writer for Green Lantern, Ron Mars and Daryl Banks. They came on and was talking about an indie book they were working on, and that was such a surreal feeling. I had Melissa Flores who worked on the Power Rangers IP for 10 years. Dude, like she was a part of Power Rangers. Like I grew up watching Power Rangers. Like it's like I don't. I'm just grateful to have people wanting to come on at this point. To me, it's insane that people want to be interviewed by me. Like it still blows my mind.
Yeah, I find it crazy when someone actually says yes to me asking to interview them type thing. So I get where you're coming from there. Um, but man, Power Rangers, God, uh, th- this is a little sidetracked, but you know Power Rangers Mystic Force, I think it was called?
I am like strictly OG, so I'm like the very, very first. And I am what is it, the Ninjetti that comes afterwards with Ivan Ooze?
I'm not sure. I started with Mystic Force, but I there's just this one scene in my head that's just like scarred me for forever, where the green Power Ranger just turns into a tree and no one knows. But that's like the first image I get of Power Rangers, but still I love the show so much.
You know, Power Rangers is a great show, and I love that it's been able to run as long as it has. Like, I mean, it goes to show you that some of these IPs, like, they are such heavy hitters from the start. And really, any idea that you come up with, like, as long as you're willing to take it all the way, like, you can put some work in.
I really want to. I am very excited for what's to come next type thing. Like I can't say who I have asked type thing, but through connections I've gotten someone that's not popular like comic book wise but I guess you could say they are game wise, but I can't say who, but oh my god, it's someone that I respect so much, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's always the best feeling in the world, man. Like for me, I'm working on some new things too. I want to start doing some panels where we get writers on talking about different subjects, and just kind of like really explore some different content. That's what this break has been all about. But I've been spending so much time getting caught up, I haven't had time to dive into other means of content. Like, you know, once you get the ball going, you eventually just get hit with so much response that it's hard to keep up. Like, there was times where I contemplating getting an assistant to help me like sort through DMs and keep active on social media for me, so I can like, because the thing is like, you want to make content, but then you have to spend so much time on social media promoting your content that you have less time to work on your content. It's annoying, you know?
Then there's all the people out there just going like, "Ah, you're just playing games." No, no, you gotta organize this stuff. You gotta plan it. You gotta edit it yourself. Unless you're really big, then you can have someone edit it for you. But I feel like some of the magic is lost if you're not the one editing it, type thing. I know that sounds crazy, but you know what I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And I have a preference for how my stuff is edited. Even though I don't do very like intricate edits, I always make sure like I go through every single video and listen to everything and make sure things line up. And man, there's been times where I tried to get ahead and I would have 10 videos uploaded only to realize that the intro like somehow got moved over a micro inch, but then the video starts off with a black screen for like a half second, then moves to the intro. And I went through every single video and redid it and re-uploaded it, just because how dedicated I am. And I think once you like sit down and determine like the level of dedication you want to have to your brand, you just got to take it and you just got to work 10% harder, you know? So
Yeah.
like, yeah, for me, I'm like, with this, when I'm doing it, I'm going to go 100. So I'm like, I'm going to try to go 110. So when I don't hit that 100, I feel like shit. But I don't know. In that same aspect, you got to realize you need days off too. And that's
Yeah.
been my hardest part, is realizing like, hey, like, take a day off. You don't need to do an interview today. You don't need to edit a video today. Like, there was times where I would edit till 4 in the morning, and then not realizing like, well, I'm spending 30 minutes to an hour, drinking coffee, monster drinks, pacing just to stay awake. The other hours that I'm working, my work isn't good because I'm not focused because I'm tired. And like I could get 4 hours of work, late at night done in an hour in the morning if I just sleep.
Yeah, there's so many times I'll be working on it in my like breaks or free time, and I'll just procrastinate so much at night for no apparent reason. I'll just like be like, "Oh, I got this part done, time to watch this video and then get back to it." And but then in the morning I'm like, I got so little done. I gotta go through this and just go crazy on the video. I don't think there's much I have left to ask you. Is there anything you want to talk about in particular?
Oh no, you're good, man. I am excited for this opportunity. I was on a show. It was more of like a chat. I guess it wasn't like a deep dive like this one was. So it was nice to kind of actually have like more of a formal like sit down and kind of really chum it up. It's like I said, when I'm doing interviews, I'm used to talking 20% of the time. So it's weird being the person that does most of the talking this time around.
Finally, Cody talks for more than 20% of a video.
Yeah, it's like I do like literally 5 to 10 minutes of talking each video, and the rest of it's the guest.
But what? So we've talked about what you do. Where can people find you? I guess to wrap this up.
So for Twitch streaming, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at job_4 FOR_A_ Cody. For Keeping It Geekly, I'm on like almost every single platform at Keeping It Geekly, one word. Um, Mostly on Twitter, YouTube. We are fighting my way to 750 subs right now. I think I'm at like 716. And I'm building a Lego Millennium Falcon. So like, let's get we're so close. We're right there. We're like what, like 34 away. Let's make it happen, baby.
As he said, go check him out. He's a great content creator. I love his stuff. I usually lurk in his streams, but he does good streams. But yeah, it was fun. Goodbye.